Hello everyone, I'm Erica and today I am going to be showing you how to paint pots to go outside on your deck, your porch, or even indoors for a house plant. So I have a pot that I have bought and I put a base coat on it. I want to paint this black and then paint other colors on top of it. And I found that the black wasn't going on well. So one of the first things you want to do is test your paint on your pot. So like this color went on really well without a base coat, so I could have just used this. And it went on fairly evenly where my black was streaking, which is why I did the base coat. So grab your paints and a pot and let's begin. Okay, so I have my base coat on, my black coat on, and it's still drying a little bit and I'll let it fully dry, but while it is, I just want to talk to you about a few things. First, you want to do thin coats of paint. The thinner, usually the better. It takes less time to dry and it tends to go on a little bit smoother. If you get a lot of paint, it's going to take forever to dry and then it's going to create a lot of bumps and ripples in your pot that make it kind of frustrating to get a really nice finish later on. I also like to paint kind of like the bottom edge of my pot so that whenever you set it down on the table or on your porch or whatever, that there isn't like a line of the terracotta showing. I also like to paint the inside of my pot, so the dirt will probably come up to about, let's see here. So it's a little past where my dirt line will probably end up being. Again, that's just a choice I made. You don't have to. And so now it's kind of time to start deciding like how I actually want to paint my pot. This one I am going to do freehand, or you can use, my colleague painted this one and he decided to use painter's tape as a resist. So whenever we start peeling this back, you'll be able to see the color underneath whenever we pull this off. Either way, you're going to end up having to do some touch-ups because the lines, it's a little hard to see, but you can see how it bleeds a little and so you don't get the clean straight lines that you want to. There are also different techniques you can use with different brushes. So you can do a little stippling effect with one of these brushes, which is what we did here for our watermelon pot. So we painted this all, came in later with one of these to do some, and tapped it around to make the kind of watermelon rind effect. So for this one, I am going to just freeform it with a bunch of different colors. I am using acrylic paints because I find that they stick the best to the pots, as well as lasting the best outside if you're going to do it outside. You could use an oil paint, but I wouldn't recommend it. And watercolor is kind of a no-go. Markers work really well on this if you want to do this as like a paint base and then go back in with like sharpies. That would actually look really cool. So I am going to show you how I'm going to paint this and then we'll tell you how to weatherproof it at the end. Okay, and we're back. So my pot has been drying for a few hours, so now it's ready. I'm pretty happy with it in the way I did it freeform. You want to touch it and make sure that your fingers don't leave any like fingerprints or disturb the paint and that nothing's tacky. That means if it's not tacky, that means it's completely dry. If there's any part of the paint that's not completely dry, that'll mix with the sealer and make it so it doesn't seal it properly. So sometimes it's best to leave this out overnight just to make sure it completely dries. So what I'm going to do now is cover it with a sealer. There are a couple of different kinds you can use. So they make spray paint sealers. I'm going to be using a Modge Podge outdoor finish for this. So I have my little palette here, and I'm actually going to mix the Modge Podge with water. So you want to dilute it a little bit. So you don't want it to be like completely running, but you don't want it to be that like Modge Podge consistency. So kind of like somewhere partially between the water and the Modge Podge. So I like to have mine in 2 little wells in my palette, and then I just mix them as I go. With this, I said it with the paint, like you want to use thin coats with this. You want to use as thin of a coat as you possible. It won't dry correctly if you have too thick of a coat. In this one, once we get the coat on here, you're going to want to let it sit for 24 hours. So you want to let it sit till the next day before you actually put anything in your pot. So I am going to mix my sealer and cover my pot, and we'll come back tomorrow and show you what the finished product with my plant in it. Hello everyone, it's been 24 hours and I wanted to show you what the final product for our project looks like. So I have, mine is completely dry. Like with the paint, you want to touch everything to make sure that it's not tacky in any way. So if your finger kind of sticks at all, or if you get that kind of like, that like tacky kind of feel, you want to let it dry for longer. You want to make sure this is completely dry before you put anything in it, because once you start watering your plant, or if you put it outside and it starts getting water on it, that's going to immediately like start washing out the sealant, and it's going to make your pot vulnerable to the paint peeling. So yeah, make sure it is completely dry. So I have actually planted mine already. I put a nice little geranium that I had in it, and it's going to go outside. A few things to remember whenever you're painting your pot with the sealant, you want to make sure you get the rim and that you get all parts. The good thing with the, if you're using like the Modge Podge sealer, it's white whenever you put it on there, so you can actually see where you've put it and see if you've missed any spots. So you want to make sure that every single spot is covered. If you're going to add a second layer to it, you want to let the first layer to dry completely and then put on a second coat. You don't want to put the sealer on if it's wet in any way. Kind of like with the paint, you want to let it dry completely before putting on a new coat. So yeah, now everything is ready to go outside. You shouldn't need to touch this up more than like a couple, like every few years, or just repaint it. So yeah, thank you for joining me for how to paint and weatherproof your outdoor pots, and hope to see you again in other programs.